Our attitude is the lens through which we see the world. And as you already know, gratitude and having a grateful disposition is incredibly important to having a positive outlook in our lives, which in turn makes a difference in how we manifest and create. And I'd love to share with you a handful of habits for success that I've written about from my book. I think there's like 48 chapters altogether, but I'm going to share 5 with you that I've written about and really kind of just lived, and that have played an important part in my journey of gratitude, self-growth, and self-awareness. So before I do that, I want to share just a little bit about myself so you can kind of get an idea of who I am. When I was little, my mother said the only word I ever said was why. I was a pretty curious little kid, and I definitely carried that sense of curiosity forward into adulthood as well. The selected habits I will be talking about tonight come from the book, which I'd mentioned, and they're a culmination of me kind of consciously sitting in the observer's role of my own life and experience, taking notes, learning, gaining self-awareness, gaining some confidence, learning self-love and acceptance, succeeding, failing, falling flat on my face at times, while continuing to get up, back on my feet, and moving forward, trying to be the best version of myself. Before we get started, I want to read a short poem for you. It's called Your Voice. Your voice creates a ripple over land and well beyond. Truthful words vibrate lifted to create a loving bond. Your voice can be your freedom, or your voice can be your hell. Mindful heed and word and thought send forth love and light to gel. Your voice can give permission to another seeking truth. Authentic centered living taps into eternal youth. Your voice can be the difference to set a young child free. Loving words to encourage, a model for them to be. Your voice is your ready key to unlock your truthful worth. Spoken pure, life now renewed, energized, loving rebirth. Your voice gives inspiration for those afraid to speak. Reassuring tone shared true helps others gain their peak. Your voice is a kindred link when spoken face to face. True connection, eyes unite, transcending time and space. Your voice is your true freedom when it's spoken from the heart. Intuition's guiding path helps you play your destined part. Your voice is fundamental for all life and love to flow. Empowered, valued, perfect, painting a worldly glow. There was a time in my life for quite a long while where I didn't really identify with my voice and my gifts and what my capabilities were. And I want to share with you how I journeyed through that process of finding and realizing my gifts while utilizing the habits that I will now share. Number 1, trust your intuitive nature. This has been an incredibly important one for me. I wouldn't be sitting here in front of you now had I not listened to that little hunch that told me my time was over at my family business in 2008. We had a golf center up in Salem, Oregon that had a driving range, a 9-hole par 3 golf course, and a retail golf store. And it was a comfortable life for me, and it was a lot of fun. But in my heart, I knew that I wasn't growing there anymore after being there for 11 years. And I felt like I had a gift inside of me that wanted to come out. I didn't know what it was at the time, but I needed to find out. So I told my father that while I truly appreciated the opportunity, I needed to move on. He was understanding and told me that he just wanted me to be happy, which was a blessing, and it made the transition a lot smoother. Now, there are many reasons why listening to our intuition is very important. Intuition is the language of the soul. When we listen to our intuition, we are fed information from our higher self. This information is divine. It can lead us to our true purpose, as well as fulfillment and peace of mind. And I am here to say absolutely to that. It has guided me to everything that has truly been special in my life. And it doesn't always make sense at first, but when you look back, it all makes perfect sense. Listening to and trusting your intuition works in all facets of your life. You might receive a positive or negative feeling about a person you just met, or whether or not to take a particular job you're offered. You might receive an all systems go intuitive hunch in regard to a project that has presented itself. But make sure that these hunches are not being manufactured by your mind or out of fear. There's definitely a difference when it comes from our intuition. Intuition can be communicated to us in very many different ways. Number one, feelings of restlessness. This was definitely the case for me as I began to feel it was time for me to leave my family business. I started to feel unsettled, unhappy, and then it was time for a change. Two, you have a sense of peace and confidence even when your decision doesn't seem rational. Now, I definitely felt an incredible sense of peace and calm once I told my father that I would be leaving the business. So I can certainly relate to this one. Even though I didn't know what my future held, the feeling I had was I was just receiving an all systems go. Now, when your intuition speaks to you, you will feel confidence and clarity. When your ego speaks, it will present life as uncertainty and fear. Number three, you may notice a recurrence of thoughts or opportunities that keep presenting themselves to you. You're getting intuitive hits or hunches about something and you aren't listening to them, they may continue showing up for you in different ways until you finally get the hint. Your brain may wander back to a particular thought. You might hear the same message in a song, or you might see a particular image pop up on TV or on the internet. Pay attention to these repeated signals. It is your intuition trying to get your attention. Number four, dreams and visions. Pay attention to your dreams. They can offer tremendous guidance and a roadmap for change. Now, I have a story to share about this, but you're going to have to wait until I get to the very last habit I talk about. Number five, a gut feeling. This feeling can hit you when you meet someone, when you walk into a room, or possibly have an important decision to make. It can affect you in a couple of different ways. It may come to you in the form of a peaceful or excited feeling accompanied by butterflies, or as a sinking, uneasy feeling that is a sign that something's off. It's important to honor and pay attention to both signals, as they could be signs that you are either headed in the right direction or that you need to be very cautious and wary. Number six, you become ill. When you ignore your intuition and its repeated attempts at communication, it is absolutely possible that you may create stress or bring illness into your life. Physical signs like anxiety and sickness can edge into your life because you are ignoring your intuitive signs that you need to change something. And finally, number seven, you may feel inspired and have a sense of knowing. Now, you know your intuition is speaking to you when you feel excited and inspired. I can certainly relate to this. Prior to all the projects that I have brought to fruition, I definitely felt a rush of excitement, energy, and a desire to make them happen. It was just another all systems go. So I knew with all of my heart that I was supposed to proceed. Now with intuition, there is so much more we could talk about, but since we have limited time, I'm going to move on to the number two, and that's strive for balance. During the course of leaving my family business, I was stuck in kind of a limbo for a year. In my heart, I was ready to hit the road and begin my new life, even though I didn't know what it was going to entail. But I had to stay around and continue to operate it while we went through the process of finding a buyer, because we decided to sell the business since I was leaving. Now, I began to really feel out of balance, and I didn't like that feeling. Being the curious person that I am, I wanted to figure out why I was feeling out of balance. So the answer was pretty simple. I was in a job that no longer fulfilled me and that I wasn't growing anymore. I knew that there wasn't much I could do about this until we sold the business, so I had to make the best of it. What I did was pretty simple. I just sat down and wrote 5 things on a piece of paper that I felt might help keep me balanced and centered, and then I stuck that in my wallet. And from that day forward, every time I began to feel out of balance or bummed out, I'd take my list out of my wallet and I would refer to it and make sure the list that I'd written. It sounds pretty simple, but it really is pretty important. The second one was make sure that I was getting some daily exercise. I'm one that needs a lot of movement. It helps kind of ground me. Number 3, make sure that I was getting enough sleep at night. Pretty basic. Number 4, allow myself some daily alone time so that I could re-energize my system. I'm an introvert, or an introvert by nature, kind of an outgoing introvert, but I'm an introvert by nature. And number 5, allow some time each day to be creative. And at that time in my life, my creative outlet was playing guitar, and I was a closet guitarist. So that it helped me out so much that intuitively I thought, hey, why don't I expand the list and make it into a book to help others in the same way that I was able to help myself? Now, I had never written a book before, but I just, I went for it. And I ended up, it kind of poured through me in a couple of months. And I ended up calling it Brian's List, 26 and a half easy to use ideas on how to live a fun, balanced, healthy life. And while the book was kind of an accident, it was a great experience, a great learning experience for me. And it pointed me in a whole new direction, which I was needing. You know, I was really headed off into the unknown, but this book just kind of gave me this new beacon to follow. So why is it important to have balance in your life? Well, it seems pretty obvious, right? But number 1, we have more energy because we have illuminated many of the things that aren't really important to us that have a tendency to weigh us down. 2, things flow smoother for us. Living in balance makes it possible to be fully alive and to live by making choices in the moment. We become proactive, not reactive. We make decisions because we want to, not because we're forced to. And that's so important. Number 3, we are able to be our true selves because we have the energy, we have the attention and space in our lives to seize new opportunities when we make room for them. We can focus on what it is that we want to do, not what we have to do. Number 4, my favorite, which we already talked about, our intuition becomes clearer and louder. Now, the greatest thing about being in balance, I feel, is that we are able to live from our heart. And when we live from our heart, we are better able to listen to our intuition and guidance and act on it. When we disconnect from our heart, we disconnect from our life source. Why is it hard to stay in balance? Well, because balance is a moving target. From day to day, our own point of balance can change depending on how much energy we have available and where our focus is. Every day is different for us. Number 2, because our lives have become busier. The more things we have going on in our life, the harder it is to stay in balance. Number 3, because we don't know ourselves well enough. When we aren't paying attention to what it is that we need to do to stay in balance, we aren't paying attention to what it is that we need to stay in balance. Staying in balance really all comes down to just self-awareness. And number 4, because we might be involved in something that doesn't suit us. Well, that was the case for me at the family business. If we're doing something that we don't want to do or isn't right for us, we're definitely going to be swimming upstream. And finally, how do we stay in balance? Well, number 1, you want to identify that you are out of balance. Some common signs are feelings of overwhelm, continual stress, poor health, and difficulty in making progress on goals. Number 2, get to know yourself better. Pay attention to your feelings. Pay attention to what keeps you in balance and what works and what doesn't work. Then it's just a matter of honoring those things and making them a part of your life or not making them part of your life. And number 3, focus on making things simpler. I know it's easier said than done, but I think that simplifying life is the easiest way to find and maintain balance. And when we have time to rest and to think about what has happened prior and what's next, it's natural to come back to center. And when we're at center, we can make proactive choices on how we want to live our lives. Number 3, step out of your comfort zone. What is a comfort zone? Well, this is kind of a dictionary definition, but to me, it seems like anything that helps keep our anxiety in check. The comfort zone, as defined by Alan Henry, is a behavioral space where your activities and behaviors fit a routine and pattern that minimizes stress and risk. The important words here are stress and risk. Since the comfort zone is a place to help keep our anxiety in check, I would also imagine it houses a sense of security and familiarity. So when we leave our comfort zones, we're basically taking a risk and opening ourselves up to the possibility of stress and anxiety because we aren't sure what is going to happen next. Well, after writing my first book, Brian's List, which we just talked about in 2009, my intuition was telling me that I would need to learn how to be more comfortable in front of people if I wanted to share its message. I was terrified of public speaking, and the proposition of giving a speech or talking to a group terrified me. But I honored what it was telling me, my intuition. And so I started by diving in and taking a couple of community college speech classes, which was then followed by a year of joining Toastmasters. And then I hired someone to co-host an internet radio show with me. It kind of took some of the pressure off, but it was still exciting and fun. I then took an acting class with no plans on acting, but I thought it would be another way to kind of get myself comfortable in front of people and maybe open up a little bit. And then I created an interactive workshop called An Introduction to Balance, which I based on the book. And I basically memorized my intro to the group, and then I would hand out worksheets to the participants, and we would discuss the answers as a group. Now, I thought it was being really clever because it was a way for me to speak and to be in front of others without having to talk the whole time. And actually, it really turned out well, that model, and it made it really nice for me too, because it showed me that I could riff, go with the flow and hear what somebody had to say, maybe talk a little bit about it, and just keep that flow going. And it was also made every workshop different for me. So it ended up being, I thought I was being really smart, but it turned out to be a really good thing. And it actually led to one of the crazier things that I have ever done as far as stepping out of my comfort zone goes. I gave that workshop to 5 friends of mine the very first time just to kind of get their feedback, and they all really enjoyed it, and it felt good about it. So being kind of the driven, sometimes silly guy that I am, I decided to take my show on the road, so to speak, and I got the idea to set up a workshop and book signing tour. And in just 3 weeks of getting on the phone, I put together a 23-day, 15-stop, 5-state trip. And I was in Reno, Nevada at the time. My son was going to high school in Northern California, just about 30 miles away. And so I set it up to go through Utah, Colorado, New Mexico, Arizona, and California. And what I did was I just got on the horn usually and either called the bookstores directly or I called the chambers of commerce in those little towns. And my first stop was in a tiny little place called Delta, Utah, which is about a 9 or 10 hour drive from Reno east across the desert. It was the first little town. And when I called to ask if I could do one, the lady at the Chamber of Commerce said that, well, we're kind of a small town. What are you wanting to do? I just told her and she said, well, how'd you like to speak at our monthly chamber luncheon? So I gulped and said yes. And that was my very first workshop outside of my friends. And it turned out to be, it was in the back room of a Mexican restaurant. There was 9 people there and most of them were farmers. Lovely people, but it was not the easiest experience to try to give an interactive workshop while everybody's eating. But they were very kind and I survived. And the rest of the trip was basically one big learning experience. I was embarrassed and humbled many times when no one showed up at some of the events. And I was ecstatic when I think I had maybe 10 or 15 at another. But each step I took out of my comfort zone was an opportunity for me to learn, grow, and gain confidence. So I've kind of kept that trip in my back pocket as I move into the future. Like if I can do that, I can do anything. Some helpful hints for stepping out of your comfort zone. Start by taking small steps. This will allow you to get comfortable with your initial discomfort of trying something new. 2, begin to do whatever it is that you're doing on a regular basis. It will help you get more comfortable with being uncomfortable, as well as help you keep up your momentum, which is so important. The more that you do, the easier it becomes. And so 3rd one, try to reframe your fear into excitement. It's a way to view what you are doing in a positive light instead of a potential negative light. I have a little story. So for example, a few years back, somebody reached out to me and I was presented with an offer to be a part of a TEDx presentation. And it was scary, but I gulped and I said yes. And I really tried to focus on the exciting aspects. For example, here I am getting to share my story with a lot of people. Cool. The positive opportunities it might lead to, great. And the growth that I was going to be gaining from it, obviously. So instead of, what if I screw it up and thousands of people see it on the video when it's released? Or what if I forget what I'm supposed to say and freeze in terror? It's all about focusing on the positive versus the negative. And if you can hold that space, you'll be fine. Next, remember why you're stepping out of your comfort zone. Remember why you're stepping out of your comfort zone. When you focus on your reason, that can give you a huge boost of courage, energy, and focus. Maybe that you feel that you have an important message to share like I did. Maybe you have a fear of flying, but you need to get across the country to support a family member. Remember why you're taking the risk and how much the reward means to you. And finally, mix things up. Hang out in new locations, visit a new restaurant, wear something different. Begin to stretch yourself out of your daily routine. It's a great way to begin the process of taking bigger steps. Great things happen when we step out of our comfort zones and follow our hearts. Doors open, opportunities are presented, and knowledge and confidence are gained. All right. The fourth habit, just be you. I've always said, love yourself and everything falls into place. And I really believe this. And for my own growth process and journey, I have witnessed this to definitely be true. When I could get to the point of truly being all right with who I was, and I mean really loving myself, warts, flaws, and all, and being okay with what I had to work with, it seemed like so many previous issues I had struggled with just seemed to ease away. And, my relationships became easier because I was coming from a place of bringing the real me, not the person that I thought someone wanted me to be. I wasn't looking for myself to fill my, outside of myself to fill my voids anymore. I wasn't looking outside of myself for validation. My work became more confident and authentic because I didn't have to waste a lot of time or energy hiding the real me. For myself, there was a huge weight that got lifted off my shoulders when I could comfortably rest in my own skin. And I'm still working on it. It's not like I have it kicked. We're all working on it. To be just you is to trust that your desires, ideas, and thoughts are enough, and that you have nothing to prove or explain to anyone because of them. My attitude changed as I began to accept myself. I found that I became more grateful and relaxed. I wasn't feeling like something was missing, but it wasn't always this way, right? After I'd written my first couple books, I remember feeling I started to put a lot of pressure on myself, like I needed to be perfect and almost pious, because here I was writing self-help books. And it really messed me up and did a huge disservice to myself, because by nature, I'm a really fun and outgoing, playful person. And I was definitely holding a part of myself back. I thought that since I was writing about self-improvement topics, I needed to be a model of perfection for the readers, which is actually the furthest thing from the truth. I attached a lot of unnecessary pressure on myself and became quite happy because of it. And ultimately, I just needed to be myself. We just need to be ourselves. People want authenticity and truth now more than ever, especially. And if we can be that for others, that will in turn inspire them and give them permission to do the same. And obviously, society isn't really doing us any favors because of all the body image advertising that's coming at us, and advertising that can make us feel less than whole, and that we need to buy their products to become lovable. And social media has also trained us to see only the best of others, while we unfortunately compare that with the worst of ourselves. So our self-esteem, unfortunately, has been hijacked for a lot of people to only feel a validation when others hit the like button for us, but we have to rise above it. And finally, number 5, there are no rules. Happily expect the unexpected. I had no intention of becoming an actor or an author. they weren't even on my radar. I originally just signed up, for that beginning acting class because I thought it would be another tool to help me become a more confident speaker. But I would soon find out that it would become an important part of my growth and creativity process. Shortly after starting that first acting class, which I talked about a long time ago, I had an idea come to me in the form of a dream one night that was about a street guitarist, a story about a street guitarist. And when I awoke, I immediately wrote it down. It felt really special. And I have really hardly ever done that ever, but this did. And I tried to make some sense of it. At the time, I was a closet guitar player and I had never played in front of anyone before. But I ended up giving a young filmmaker I had just met a call and asked if he wanted to hear an idea I had about a potential short film. So we met a few days later in person and he loved the idea. No more than a few weeks after that, we found ourselves on the streets of Reno, Nevada over maybe 4 or 5 nights in a row, making a short film that I wrote and acted in called Guitar Man. I didn't really know what I was doing. I just knew that I wanted to do it. I had an intuitive vision. And with my friend Michael's experience and help, we made it happen. And it was a really, really powerful experience for me. I felt totally alive. I had never acted before, and I certainly had never played guitar in front of anyone ever before. And there I was doing it on film. And Guitar Man ended up getting accepted to, I think, 11 or 12 film festivals, which was mind-blowing to me. But more importantly, it opened up another door of creativity for me, which I had no idea was even, going to be coming along. Someone else saw that film and gave me the lead role in a film he was directing. And on that film, I met a very talented and experienced actress who became a good friend of mine and was also very instrumental in helping me move to Los Angeles about a year later. So, which in turn led to other creative projects and opportunities. Acting, like writing, just found me simply because I was listening to my intuition. I had no expectations. I just kept an open mind and I showed up. Once I began to realize that there were no rules and that my paths didn't have to look like everyone else's, which is a really easy thing to kind of fall into sometimes, I relaxed and my whole world opened up. Now I happily expect the unexpected. And I want you to be that way as well. And I'd like to leave you with another short poem. This one's called Treasure Map. In search of a treasure, we look for a map, a guide to riches fulfilled, an outline to lead us, a smooth road to travel, a sketch for happiness to yield. We search high to the heavens and low to the earth for reasons to quiet our mind. We look near to friends and far to religion for explanations and answers to find. Our path can be difficult and filled with much pain as we seek away from the heart. A route void of aim, light, or guidance, and back to the beginning we start. So we gather our strength and try again and begin to roll with the tide. The treasure we seek isn't high, low, near, or far, but in us, resting gently inside. Treasure resides within all of us. I know you all know that. And while it took me a while to find and honor mine, I got there, and nothing would make me happier than to have the same be the case for everybody else. Thank you.